Hey everybody, I am Jonathan from TerreDice Games, and I'm here to answer all of your board game questions. Now, these are more like hobby-related questions around, the nitty-gritties of the different subcultures of board gaming and how we think about playing games. But if you're really just here thinking like, I just want to know what's a good two-player game, or I want to know what to play with my wife, then maybe you should go check out some of our other videos where we talk about best board games for couples and best games for Halloween and all sorts of things like that. I hope that you find a game that works for you. Ooh, okay, this is a pretty heated topic because I have a lot of friends at work who love Catan, mostly because they've only ever played Catan. Now, I will say, Catan holds an incredibly important part in our board game history, in that so many games were born off the back of games like Catan. So at the time, there weren't a lot of games that had variable setup. There weren't a lot of games that had, hey, we're going to activate different things based on dice, so you have to have strategy. There weren't a lot of games that had you thinking about side objectives like Longest Road and things like that. So there are a lot of concepts that came from games like Catan. Now, I'll say that since then, a lot of games have built on the shoulders of that game and other games to sort of provide more, I would say, competitive experiences where it's more balanced, more chance for strategy to win over luck. If you're looking for a great negotiating game and you love the I'll trade my sheep for your wood, I'll trade my sheep for your wheat thing, then I would say check out Moonrakers. Moonrakers is, I think, the best negotiation game out there. A meeple, or my people, me people. It's me people. It's the me's. They are, I have Everdell in front of me, so I can show you one of these. They are these little wooden figures that originally were shaped like people in the first implementation, which was Carcassonne, which is a tile laying sort of map building game. But a little wooden figure that you typically are going to be placing on a board to score points or do actions. And yeah, typically you'll have them in your colors, and hence they are your me people. Whoa, is Wingspan worth the hype? Wingspan has sold millions of copies, and it did hit an important milestone. It was the first game sold in Target for $50 or more MSRP. Now, before that, no game had sold for that price in Target, and for Target to pick it up for that and to put it on the end caps like they do and put it in its placement in the store, that's a really big deal. And so I would say, in fact, it is worth the hype. There was this sort of increase in bird watching over the past couple of years, and especially during the pandemic, people were able to relate their interest and love in bird watching with their interest and love in learning about board games, or vice versa. We, in fact, got into bird watching as a result of playing Wingspan. So it's been a fun bridge between two very kind of deeply ingrained hobby communities. Ah, yes, the classic question. So Euro games, typically first designed in Europe, are a little bit more, I call them beige, but the correct terminology might be expectable. It would be that there's a lot of public information, there is a clear sequence to how rounds and turns are going to progress. Typically points are earned in sort of expected manners, I would say, in terms of like, I'm going to place a worker, which gives me points, which gives me resources, which lets me spend things here, and it all kind of makes sense to a lot of people. Ameritrash games, on the other hand, are typically have a lot of combat, a lot of player interaction, a lot of randomness, whether it's dice or take that cards that I pull out of my hand. The trash component comes from like, well, you do something expecting it's going to work, and somebody else goes, no, because I do X, Y, Z, and you fail the dice roll, and that's the trash. Yeah, I'm gonna say Root is as hard to learn as people say that it is. Now, it's not because the base core rules are all that complex. In fact, once you kind of know them, you kind of get what's going on. But so much of Root is that sort of surprise, backstabbery, like all of a sudden this other faction is gonna start gaining lots of points from something that I don't understand because I don't know how their faction works. And so part of understanding Root is understanding all the other factions that are at play. So when you play against a faction for the first time, it's important that you understand how they work too, when in many games you only have to care about how your things work and just generally know that you're pacing well with other players. Whoa, okay, okay, so we have Disney villainous, we have Marvel villainous, and we have Star Wars villainous. First of all, they're all good, so you should pick the franchise that you like the best. Now, so I guess I'll come up with one set for each of them. So if you like Disney villainous, honestly, pick the one that has the characters that you like best. My favorite's the set with Cruella and Pete. I think those are incredibly fun puzzles. If you're going for Marvel villainous, I would say my favorite set is probably the one with Loki in it, because you had a bunch of like you're going to other people's realms and stuff. That was a ton of wacky fun. And then for Star Wars villainous, I would say the best is the one with Darth Maul and Captain Phasma. I think that was a really fun set that brought in a lot of really fun thematic elements. Oh my gosh. Okay, so people hate on Monopoly. I mean, there's a lot of history to Monopoly. It was originally created as like a satire for capitalism, and there's a lot of really cool history to it. I mean, it was used in World War II to help people escape from prison camps where like they had actual maps and compasses in them. So there's a lot of history to Monopoly. However, Monopoly is as random as it gets. You roll and you move, and you can get to the point where you can happen to land on only your properties every time, and other people happen to land on your properties every time too, and you're gonna win by luck and luck alone. So it's one of those games that can outstay its welcome when you have a few too many unlucky turns. Okay, so expansions are really interesting. There's a couple types of expansions that people would get to games. There's the more cards expansion, which even is in like, Cards Against Humanity. Do you get the bigger, blacker box? Do you get all these things? Those are just adding more content to the game. I prefer the ones that just kind of add and mix in content as opposed to changing how the core gameplay loop works. However, there's a whole nother set of expansions that will like totally change the game. I happen to have Everdell out in front of me, and we have Pearlbrook that brings us out to the river. We have New Leaf that brings us to the train station. It totally gives you new objectives to work towards, and that can be a lot of fun, but you have to know that you're sort of like changing the core experience of the game when you choose to get into those. So I would say, yep, generally fall into two categories. It's do you want more of the same and you love it, or do you want to change it up because you've sort of exhausted all that the base game has to offer? Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is up to you and how much space you have. Some people like to put all the expansions and all their other stuff in the core base games. Sometimes you have just the base game, but you don't like the way it's stored, so you take out the insert and you put whatever you want in it. But it's really up to, do you like the look of the boxes? Do you want to display the boxes? Do you want to have them forward facing so that you can get to enjoy all of the artwork? Do you want to just stack them so that, they're all horizontally stacked, nothing's going to shift or fall, and it's, all there when you need it, but you might have to like pick up stacks? Honestly, it's kind of up to you on how you want to do it, but space is going to be the primary factor. Sleeving is a dark and cultish practice that some follow. The purpose of it is basically you put your cards in card sleeves so that they retain their value and do not get damaged. Now, there are multiple reasons you might do it. One is for resale, or for keeping it at its like pristine condition. The only reason that I consider sleeving to be particularly useful is if you have very flimsy cards that have hidden roles or hidden information that would break the core loop of the game if like a card got nicked or torn. It's like if you knew that the werewolf had the white like flap in the corner where it was broken, it could break One Night Werewolf. So there are some examples like that where I consider sleeving to be useful. That's a great question. I would say any game that, it doesn't have to be hard per se. It doesn't even have to be a gateway game, but it has to be a game that they've never heard of. It's like, if you play something like Harmonies. Harmonies is easy to learn. It's a fun little animal habitat game where you're building out beautiful tiles, and it's a game that they've surely never heard of. And so I think that's a good way to say, hey, I have 300 other games that look like this. But I think it's, knowing your audience and knowing what's going to get them to the table, I think is the best way to go. I don't think board games are getting too complicated. Like I said, Harmonies as a recent example of a game that's beautiful and simple. I think games have continued to evolve, and there's so many new Frankensteins of hundreds of types of mechanics to support those gamers who really like to get into the depth of complexity. But I don't think that by any means everybody has to like those to be good gamers or to enjoy board gaming. I would say board games are too many when you own more than 30 that you've not played before. If you've not played 30 of the games in your collection, you have too many. I think, that might even sound a little bit high, but there are certain games that are great for certain conditions, and you might buy a game that's great for 6 to 8 players and then not have a chance to play it for a couple of months until you can get that 6 to 8 player group together. You might have a perfect party game for your family that you're going to play at the holidays, and it's saved for those situations. But if you have more than that, which a few of you who are watching this will, you have too many. Is that a real question?
Yeah.
Wow, because Great Western Trail is my favorite game, so you should absolutely get Great Western Trail. But no, both Great Western Trail and Brass Birmingham are fantastic games. I'd recommend playing either of them with other people first before deciding whether you want to get it. They are pretty complex games and take a while when you get them to the table, so it'd be great if you have an opportunity to play it with somebody else first. Ooh, my favorite solo game that I've played that doesn't feel too mechanical is Arkham Horror, the card game. So Arkham Horror is an excellent cooperative card game where you're moving around the city of Arkham and you're doing all sorts of like crazy stuff because there's demons coming out of the floor and whatnot. But whether you play it solo or two-player, I think it's been a fantastic experience. It does give you that sense of loneliness where you're like, oh shoot, I'm all alone and there's demons everywhere, and it makes you wish you had a second player, but it sure is fun. Variable player powers can vastly affect game balance, and I mentioned this earlier with an answer about root. Usually when a game offers an opportunity to play without variable powers, it's always recommended to play without them first. It allows you to learn the core rules so that when you play that subsequent game, you know how to combat and you're focused a little bit more on how to play against other people's variable powers. My name is Jonathan. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd take a moment to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications, we would much appreciate it. And thank you for watching. Happy playing!